There was once a swordsman in feudal Japan who was regarded by all who knew him as one of the most gifted men of his generation. His footwork was precise. His form was elegant. When he moved through a kata in the morning mist, younger students would stop their training to watch. They believed they were witnessing the future. They were not. They were watching a man who had confused the appearance of mastery with mastery itself. His name does not matter. What matters is what lived inside him. He trained when he felt like training. He sharpened his blade when the mood arrived. On cold mornings, he told himself that rest was part of the discipline. On rainy evenings, he told himself that the mind needed silence. And when weeks passed without serious practice, he filled those weeks with conversations about practice, with philosophy about practice, with long evenings spent thinking about the kind of swordsman he would one day become. He was not lazy in the way that lazy men are lazy. He was industrious in his imagination. He was tireless in his planning. He could speak about discipline with such authority that men twice his age would nod in solemn agreement. But when the dojo was empty, and the hour was early, and the cold demanded something from him that no one was watching, he turned away. Every time. He always had a reason, and the reason always sounded wise. This is the first brutal truth. The most dangerous enemy of self-control is not weakness. It is the intelligent mind that has learned to justify weakness with language that sounds like strength. He did not know he was failing. That was the trap. He felt on most days like a man who was simply being thoughtful, being strategic, being patient. He told himself that his time was coming, that he was preserving himself for when it truly mattered. But time does not wait for readiness. Time moves regardless. And the man who waits for the right moment discovers, too late, that the right moment was every ordinary moment he let pass. Years moved. The younger students grew. Some of them were less gifted than he was. Their forms were rougher, their instincts slower. But they arrived before dawn when he was still sleeping. They remained after sunset when he had already gone home. They made no speeches about discipline. They simply returned day after day to the same cold room, to the same hard floor, to the same resistance that wanted to send them away. And slowly, without drama, without inspiration, without a single moment of revelation, they surpassed him. He noticed this. He felt it. And what he felt was not guilt, not at first. What he felt was confusion, because in his mind, he was still the talented one. He had always been the talented one. Talent had been his identity for so long that he had stopped examining what he was actually doing with it. His ego had made a quiet, catastrophic decision on his behalf, that what he was born with would substitute for what he refused to build. This is the second brutal truth. Ego does not protect you. Ego anesthetizes you. It creates the sensation of progress in the absence of movement. It is the most comfortable prison ever constructed because the man inside it genuinely believes he is standing in open air. Now consider a different man, a real man, a man whose life was recorded not in legend but in practice. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman in Japanese history, did not become what he was through talent. He was not born in the dojo of a famous master. He was not given advantages or refined instruction in his early years. What Musashi had was something far less romantic and far more powerful. He had the willingness to do the same thing badly, repeatedly, without the consolation of being told he was exceptional. He fought his first duel at 13. He won, not because he was ready, not because he was inspired, but because he moved, he engaged, he acted before certainty arrived, and then he kept going. 60 duels over a lifetime, not one defeat, but the record is not the lesson. The lesson is what exists beneath the record. Thousands of mornings without an audience, thousands of repetitions without applause. A man alone with a sword and the fundamental question that self-control asks of every human being. Will you do this when no one is watching and nothing is compelling you to? Musashi wrote in the Book of Five Rings that the way of the warrior is found in training morning and evening. Not in inspiration, not in revelation. Morning and evening, the rhythm of repetition, the architecture of commitment built one ordinary action at a time. He did not wait to feel ready. He understood something that most men never learn. Motivation does not create action. Action creates motivation. The feeling of discipline does not arrive before the behavior. It arrives because of the behavior. You do not wait until you are strong enough to begin. You begin, and the beginning is what makes you strong. This is the third brutal truth, and it is the one most people cannot handle. Not because it is complex, because it is simple. And simplicity, when it demands something from you, is far more difficult to accept than complexity. Complexity gives you somewhere to hide. Simplicity leaves you exposed. The swordsman with the elegant form had spent years hiding inside complexity. He had turned self-control into a philosophical puzzle that needed to be solved before it could be practiced. He had made the very act of beginning conditional upon understanding. And because the understanding never felt quite complete, the beginning never came. He had dressed procrastination in the robes of patience and called it wisdom. This is what the psychologists call ego depletion avoidance. The mind, sensing the discomfort of genuine effort, constructs a narrative that reframes avoidance as prudence. It is not that I am avoiding this. It is that I am not yet ready. It is not that I lack discipline. It is that I am choosing the right moment. The mind is extraordinarily skilled at this. It has had an entire lifetime of practice. And unlike the body, which shows its failures visibly, the mind's failures remain invisible. Hidden inside thoughts that feel, to the person thinking them, indistinguishable from wisdom. The fear at the center of all of this is not the fear of failure. Failure, in truth, is something most men can survive. They have survived it before. They will survive it again. The real fear is more intimate than that. It is the fear of discovering, through actual effort consistently applied, that you are not who you believe yourself to be. That the image you carry of yourself, the potential you have always assumed was waiting inside you, might not exist in the form you imagined. That you might work hard, truly work, and still find yourself ordinary. This fear is why so many men remain in perpetual preparation. The man who is always planning the business but never opens it. The man who is always researching the training program but never begins it. The man who reads every book about discipline but performs none of it. The plan protects the identity. As long as the attempt has not been made, the potential remains intact. Unexamined potential is infinite. Examined potential has a shape, a size, a limitation. And that limitation is what the ego cannot endure. But here is what is lost in that protection. Every day spent preserving the image of what you might become is a day taken from what you could be building. Time is the one currency that does not refund. And the cruelest thing about the slow passage of time is that it feels, in each individual moment, like there is more of it ahead. Tomorrow will be the day, next week, when the conditions are better, next month, when the pressure eases. And then one morning, a man looks into a mirror and understands, with a quiet devastation, that tomorrow has been arriving for a decade and has never once been used. This is how time defeats the undisciplined man. Not in a single catastrophic moment. In 1,000 small surrenders, each one feeling, in isolation, like a reasonable compromise. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, philosopher and warrior, wrote in his private journals, words never intended for public eyes, that he must wake with purpose. Not because he felt inspired, not because the morning was welcoming, but because to lie in comfort when there is work to be done is to fail the hour. He governed an empire and fought wars on its borders, and still he reminded himself, daily, in private, that the mind must be commanded before the body can serve. He did not assume discipline would arrive as a feeling. He treated it as a decision, made before feeling was consulted. That is the discipline of identity, not the discipline of mood. The man who relies on mood will have discipline only when conditions cooperate. The man who builds it into identity performs it regardless of conditions. Because his question is not, do I feel like doing this today? His question is, who am I? And the answer to that question is built or destroyed in every small moment of choice. This is what the swordsman with the beautiful form never understood. He believed discipline was something you felt, something that would arrive fully formed and carry you through the difficulty. He was waiting for a force that only comes after movement, not before it. He died as he lived, talented and incomplete, a monument to what preparation without commitment produces. Do not mistake the plan for the path. Do not confuse reading about the journey for taking a single step. Do not let the mind's ability to imagine progress substitute for the body's willingness to create it. Strength does not mean the absence of resistance. Strength means moving forward while resistance is present. Discipline does not mean you never want to stop. Discipline means you continue when stopping is the easier choice. Identity is not what you intend. Identity is what you do when no one is compelling you and nothing is rewarding you, and the only reason to continue is that you decided, quietly and without ceremony, that this is who you are. Begin. Not when you are ready. Not when it feels right. Not when the conditions have aligned in your favor. Begin now. In the cold. In the uncertainty. In the absence of feeling. Because the man who begins in the dark becomes the man who never needs the light to find his way.